Okay, and welcome to the first episode of the Other Four Horsemen podcast. My name is Justin Perkins, and I've got
Jeremy Patrick.
Josh White, also known as no one of any known,
Dirty White Boy.
Yeah, we're close enough.
Dirty White Boy.
And JoJo Krieger.
Okay, before we get started, I'm going to do a couple quick little ads. First, Chain Reaction BJJ. They're in Hazard, Kentucky. They accept adult children. They've got classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Josh, don't make this hard. don't look me in the eye while I'm doing ad reads. You can find out everything you need to know about them at chainreactionbjj.com. Deathless Forge, you can find them on Deathless Forge on Facebook, and you can find them on Etsy. Zoka Blacksmith makes some pretty neat stuff, so get on and check them out. And Hot Rods Pizza, if they don't kick us out before we air this. They're in Hyman, Kentucky. Great food, great pizza. They let us come here and do this live here. So check them out. Their number is 785-0055, and they run a lot of little deals and stuff, special little giveaways and stuff on Facebook, so check them out on Facebook. I had to look away from you in order to do it. And I can't listen to myself through the headphones while we do this. It's not going to work out. So, with this basically just excuse to hang out and do a podcast in that time frame and what time we're hanging out, we'll discuss a lot of different stuff when we do the different podcasts, but I think we kind of settled on today just talking about some old school wrestling. So, you know, what we grew up on, probably 80s and the 90s. When did you, like, we'll blame this one on Josh. This is, we let him pick the first one, so you're all older than me, but I believe you're the oldest. That would be my guess. Yeah, you're an old man. I'm the grayest, but you're the oldest. Yeah, so what time frame, what area did you start watching wrestling most?
Well, I actually started about, I'd say it's probably 84, 85. My dad was a big wrestling fan, so, you know, I always watched with him, you know. Usually it was stuff on the USA Network, you know, All-American Wrestling, you know, with Hulk Hogan and all those guys. There was also the, you know, Saturday Night 605 TBS stuff, you know. You know, you had Georgia Championship Wrestling, you know, Carolina Mid-Atlantic stuff, you know, and that's pretty much what I cut my teeth on, and that's, you know, that's really what got me hooked to this day, really, you know.
So what did you come in on, Jeremy?
Well, I'm just going to echo what Josh said. I started watching wrestling probably 85 or 86, just somewhere around in there. I can very, very vaguely remember the whole, you know, Piper-Hogan feud in the mid-'80s around WrestleMania 1, Cyndi Lauper and all that stuff. But my more vivid conscious memories come late 80s, early 90s, the Earthquake-Hogan feud and the, you know, Ravishing Rick Rude and Macho Man, you know, some of those classic feuds. I can remember when Sting joined and then left the Four Horsemen.
Oh,
you know.
Oh, no, they jumped him.
Yes, they did.
Like, you're not a horseman anymore.
Was that a Halloween Havoc? I think that happened to Halloween Havoc, didn't it?
It was one of those.
So I don't have a memory. It was the Clash of Champions or Halloween Havoc, I believe. That was. Cause, what about you, JoJo? You take me as a 90s guy. You come in.
I come in like around the Attitude area.
You know. You got
I watched
a late bloomer, if you will.
Yeah, I watched it earlier, but like I can't really remember most of it.
Well, I started WCW, and I don't know why, but I guess it was so prevalent with TBS. There's so many, you know. I seen more stuff on TBS. Plus, Clash of Champions was free, and I was surprisingly, I was a big Sting mark at the time. I love Sting. Mm-hmm. I wasn't crazy about Hogan, but as more of the shows popped up on USA, like I did start getting more into WWF, probably by, I'm like Joey though, by the time I really was into WWF was more in the Attitude Era. I like WWF for certain wrestlers throughout the late 80s and early 90s because I come in probably 87, 88, and I mean, to me, Macho Man and, you know, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's two of the best workers ever. So, like, I like WWF for that. Like, other than that, I'm a Ric Flair guy. Like, even when I was younger, I hated him, but I hated him more than everybody. And then I realized, well, you know, I liked him that much. And so I've been a Horseman Flair guy forever. So I think that's how WCW had.
Yeah, and that's pretty much a testament to how good of a worker he was. You know, you absolutely hate his guts. You know, you want to see somebody go out and just cream him, you know, beat the crap out of him, you know, take the belt off of him, then you realize later, man, he was working us really hard.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, he's just great,
You live to hate him.
Right, exactly.
If you really sit and think about it, can you remember one title shot where Flair pinned a guy and won the title fair and square in the center of the ring?
Actually winning it?
Yes, winning. No cheating, no interference. No.
The only real clean one I can even think of was him and Terry Funk in 1990. But Flair was working face then, though.
Yeah.
He made Terry Funk quit, and Terry Funk's like, if you make me quit, I'll shake your hand. which is still one of the best matches I think I've ever watched.
Well, all his matches were good. You look at him and Dusty Rhodes. Like, Dusty Rhodes don't get a lot of credit because now Dusty Rhodes, he's one of them guys that he could go with Flair.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could. And I remember reading the magazines, and the magazines is one of those things that it got me early on wrestling. I was like, hold on a minute, I just seen them fight an hour Iron Man match, on a Clash of the Champions, and then the magazines got that they done it 15 other times. I didn't realize they were wrestling the same match every night. Right. But to go an hour to no win, to a draw every night for a month on the road, like that'd be hard.
That's crazy.
And they would do it forever. They would travel like that for months at a time. And I think that was the difference too. Is like at that time in '80s, coming in the '90s, like WCW was probably a little more believable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was not a dead dude walking around. Like, it wasn't, even as a kid.
Right.
Like, he
It
wanted
was more
it to be
reality
real.
based, without a doubt. There were a lot of characters and gimmicks in WWF at the time, and they took the reality approach in WCW without a doubt.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I was about to say, too. You have your superhero stuff with your WWF, Hulk Hogan coming in fighting, saving the day, saying your prayers, take your vitamins, brother, and all that. But then, in the Carolinas, Georgia, WCW in general, it was work rates.
Yeah.
Those guys went out and, they made you want to see them either get their comeuppance against the heel or, or whatever, just from, talent,
Ric Flair made people mad, too. Like, that was a real thing. Like, you go back and look at that, like, it's amazing at how upset people really got.
Oh,
And Rick, like my mama Minnie would just sit and watch. Like she would watch wrestling, and I remember being little and watching her watch it. And she'd be like, "Oh Lord, won't somebody call them and stop them? There has to be a number down at that TV station. Won't somebody call them?" And like she got in, and like when they would have local shows around here, old timers around here, they got pumped on it. Like it was a serious event to them.
But the way I always seen wrestling, like WCW was always like rated G or PG, and then you had WWF says PG-13, and then ECW was rated R, like, cuss and everything goes kind of deal. And then he wanted to go and, Vince McMahon combined everything, and I think he just ruined wrestling as we knew it.
He did, but they stole that ECW formula. To me, wrestling has lost a lot, and to me, like, I contribute that to three things. One, breaking kayfabe. When they broke kayfabe and talked about things they shouldn't talk about, like, even though it's not real, that did hurt wrestling. ECW, I loved ECW. We used to get we get together and watch those pay-per-views and stuff. Like I loved it, but hardcore wrestling killed wrestling because it was hard to go back to a regular match. Real fans eventually could, but I think the general public had a hard time going back to a regular match. And then Stone Cold, like I love Stone Cold. I think he's one of the best characters ever.
Yeah.
But he killed wrestling because. I'm not saying he killed it, but he definitely changed what it had to be because they're up until Stone Cold, with the exception, they done it a little bit before Stone Cold got big. They did a little bit with Bret Hart with the whole Canada-America thing, but to have a heel, or really to have a babyface that was a bad guy or a bad person, like that was unique. That was unique. You didn't
The
see that.
anti-hero.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think that's like it become the most popular model, but it definitely that changed things completely.
But we could all relate to Stone Cold as we got older anyway. Who wouldn't want to stick it to their boss,
Right.
I can't.
Somebody cross
no, he's got money and he's in shape and he's I can't relate to it. I'm more like maybe Gold Dust, I'm a weirdo. I could relate to Gold Dust, not Stone Cold or Mick Foley. I'm a Mick Foley guy.
You remember when Mick Foley come to the library down there and sign autographs.
Yes, I was in line for
Just
that.
a couple years ago, yeah.
You know, they told him he's going to be there like a couple of hours, and he sat there the whole time. Like by the end of the day, he was just like so tired he couldn't hold his head up, and he was still signing autographs. He wouldn't leave until the last person got their autograph.
Yeah, he's a heck of a guy, man.
To me, I mean, that's just amazing to me.
Well, a friend of mine, Tim Hudson, he's a somewhat of a local photographer. He's worked with us at the trail ride and so forth, and he gave Mick Foley an autism awareness bracelet because one of his relatives has Asperger's syndrome, and he kept that bracelet, and forever and ever you could see him on TV wearing that bracelet. Mm-hmm. I mean, that says a lot about his character and, sense of dignity, I think.
He's
good guy, real good guy.
He's a down-to-earth guy. Like, he was that guy that, retired with money, because you don't hear that much. Like, you hear about, guys like Luger and stuff that retired with nothing and had to, but, he's sleeping on people's couches and saving money. Like, he was sleeping on fans' couches when he was, from what I hear, when he was, the champion, when he was a world champion. Mm-hmm. Do you remember the night he won the title?
Oh, against, The Rock when Stone Cold came out.
And that
Yes.
probably was the nail in the coffin for WCW.
Well, it was, because you remember, on the other channel, they, Eric Bischoff told Tony Schiavone to say on the air, he said, on the other channel, a guy who used to wrestle here is Cactus Jack is going to win the world title.
I remember
That'll really put butts in the seats.
I remember that very, very plainly.
And then everybody at the same time, like, oh my God, Foley's going to win. Change the channel.
Yeah,
so.
And before then, I don't remember them ever even acknowledging one another. And just all at once, Tony Schiavone's like, "Hey, over on WWF, this is going to happen." And I remember just my mouth being agape. I was like, "He did not just do that," but he did.
They did stuff like that in the early days of Nitro because when it was live,
and they were recording, and I didn't
and they
realize
would say,
that.
here's what's going to happen. Vader's going to beat Too Cold Scorpio. Shawn Michaels going to beat Sid with a super kick, blah, 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 this, that, This was like in the early days when they were trying to steal views from Vince. But they'd kind of gotten away from that for a while, it seems like, and just kind of because they got the hot hand and they just, we don't need to put Vince anymore. We're on top, guys. NWO and all that. Then, that tide started to turn when Attitude Era started, And then people started identifying more with guys like The Rock and Stone Cold and Gold Dust, I suppose.
Don't you look at me. I'm just saying, I'm closer to a Goldust than a Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, probably much closer to a Mick Foley than that.
But now Foley, he was, I think people identify with Foley, because he's one of us.
He
really is.
He's
a guy who had a dream, He's like, hey, I want to be a wrestler, Didn't really have the natural, talent somebody like Flair or Steamboat had, But he had, the will, or to steal a term, the intestinal fortitude to go out, and just, make those long drives, in the snow in a Ford Fairmont, sleep on couches, eat peanut butter, as a meal every day, It must have all went to his thighs, I don't know. But.
Well, I can remember when he, like, even the Cactus Jack days, like, he was not, like, what they called WWF body. Like, he didn't have the Luger body, but he was definitely in shape because, like, he went harder back then. To me, that was his heyday. Like, he got his, he got the respect he deserved and stuff later on in WWE, but those Cactus Jack, the feud with Sting and the stuff with Vader back in WCW, to me, or the stuff with Funk, like, even the ECW stuff, to me, like, that's when he really shined. Like, I don't think he got enough credit for being as good as he actually was,
Right.
Like, he wasn't, a mat wrestler, but he still, he had a lot of talent. He told a really good story.
Oh, yeah. See, that's one of the misconceptions, I think, about wrestling. Some people say to have a 5-star match, you have to have one of these mat classics, flips and twists, all kinds of technical chain wrestling. But no, the best matches always tell a story. You look at WrestleMania 3, Hogan and Andre.
Yeah.
That's one of the best. It's considered one of the best matches ever.
Right.
And those guys didn't do anything in the ring. They didn't put on this big, moonsaults and chain wrestling and arm drags and all that. They told a story.
But it told a good story, and people will still say, "Well, he slammed Andre." But nobody could. Andre had been slammed 500 times before that, but you don't remember that.
No,
you remember that because it told such a good story.
Right.
Like, it was, it was an amazing story.
And
I'll give Hogan's had a lot of those moments. I'll give him that. I'm not completely anti-Hogan.
Hogan had his place. He was a storytelling wrestler.
But they did him wrong. No matter what you say, they did him wrong.
You mean with this last thing when they took him out? Yeah, that was ridiculous.
And then bring him back when Mean Gene dies, and I'm like,
they
I
bring
would
him back
have
because
told
they
him
can
no.
make money off of him again. That's what bothered me is if you were going to kick him out, like just kick him out and leave him out. Like stand by it. Because they don't stand by anything. That's like you don't ever hear, was it 2004 that Benoit won the Royal Rumble?
I think so.
It was
early
2000s,
2000s,
Iron Man.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay them to talk about that.
Oh,
There's
Lord,
no
no.
way. And that's a tragedy what happened to his wife and his,
Mm-hmm.
But who's to say that he wasn't equally as mentally ill? But either way, like that's a separate instance. Like I'm not saying glorify the guy, but like it's a show about fake athletic competition. You can recognize these things and take the time to separate them from other stuff. And with Hogan, it was just, here, he said something that we don't agree with. Let's get rid of him until everybody forgets about it, and everybody has. And then now we'll bring him back and milk him for more money.
Well, they took him out of the Hall of Fame and everything. I mean, he never existed to them.
Right.
And there's a video where Vince McMahon calls John Cena the same word that Hogan used.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've
nothing
seen
was
that.
said.
But he owns the company, and you can
Yeah,
get
That's
away
what I'm
with that if
saying.
you own the
Like
They
company.
that.
erased him like
Fired,
he never.
you know.
He was what made Vince McMahon, in my opinion. Love him or hate him, he still put in a lot of footwork for Vince.
Oh,
Made him rich.
He definitely built the company. There's no doubt about it. He built the company. That company's built off his back.
Oh, yeah.
There's no, you imagine what AWA could have been possibly if they'd had the TV deal and not lost Hogan, which I'm sure, I don't know, it'd been hard to stop McMahon. I don't think you could have stopped McMahon regardless. I don't think that's possible, because at one point in time before it was over, I think, and I love Kurt Hennig. I think Mr. Perfect was an amazing wrestler, one of my favorites. But him as your world champion in AWA, and then you've got Hogan, they couldn't compete. There's no way.
No. And really the only thing they could have did to compete, guys like Vern Gagne and things like that, was to, like the old, tall tales that, send somebody out to shoot on him, break his leg before the match or break his arm.
Well, they sent. He swears. I mean, if you listen to the Sheik swears that they sent him to break Hogan's leg before. And look, if anybody could have done it, the Sheik probably could have done it.
He was legit.
I humble you. He could probably have done it, but for them to want to go to that. Plus, you got Gagne and his son are champion or tag team champion the other day. Like, you can't do that. Like, look at Gagne's son. I'm never going to be a world champion for a reason. Like, you can't convince anybody, especially back then when people still believed it was real. You're not convinced them I'm a champion material. You're not going to convince me Vern Gagne's son could have been a world champion either.
No,
like, it's just
absolutely not.
I don't
That would
remember
have been
his
just as
name.
believable as Shane McMahon being world champion right now.
He has the best elbow in the business. Tell me, other than the Macho Man, he has the best elbow in the business. I may not be able to say anything else about his abilities, but you go back and look at, he does the elbow drop off anything. It's the best elbow in the business.
He might can elbow, but he can't work a punch to save his life. If you notice, he'd be like,
He's horrible.
like this,
You save him for the elbow. McMahon surprised me because, that was the thing that turned around the ratings definitely in that Monday Night War was McMahon versus Austin. And Joey said everybody wants to fight their boss. And, it just took off. It was like wildfire. And McMahon did a good job. He never put himself over, really, though. If you really go back and look, he had to fight the whole corporation, or he had to fight this guy, or what was it, St. Valentine's Day Massacre when he originally fought McMahon, wasn't that when Paul White showed, when the Big Show showed up, So it was always something. He never really put himself over to the extent of, like, I didn't even see it, but I heard the other day his son won some big wrestling tournament overseas, Dubai or something like that.
oh yeah, that was a big to-do, really, there. They have this whole, like, 8-man tournament or whatever, and he gets down to the finals, and he puts himself in.
Where's the payoff to that? Like, that's
There's
like
not
Brock
one.
Lesnar being champion. Where's the payoff to that?
Yeah, there wasn't one. And they end up just kind of forgetting about it. They said it was like a seed for a heel turn or something like that. But then, a few months back, what was it? They said, we're starting to listen to our audience now, and then that kind of changed everything.
They're not listening to me because I
No.
don't watch anything.
They haven't listened to me in a long time.
So do y'all still watch wrestling?
No.
No,
I just can't.
I read results. I really can't. See, and that's the sad thing about it, because if you look at the roster right now, I mean, top to bottom, it's probably the most talented roster they've ever had, since maybe the late 80s with Hogan and Jake and Honky Tonk Man and guys like that. It's absolute talent, but they can't use them.
it's a writing.
They'll
It's
take 2 or 3
creative
guys and use those guys, push those to the moon, then everybody else is,
Well, my in-laws watch it, and I get stuck watching it sometimes, and it's like, man, it's just so. I mean, I know it's always been fake, but it's unbelievable.
It's not entertaining either.
It's like
It's
Power
not.
Ranger fake now.
Right.
The punches don't
They
come
don't- they
nowhere
don't
as
say
near hitting, and they, it's just crazy the way that they've changed it so much over the years. But society's changed too, so.
It has, but like the creative isn't there. Like any one of us at 16, 17, 18-year-old would probably have done what everybody before us done. At least the people right before us. A lot of people do transition out of wrestling at that point. And when I was 16-year-old, everybody was transitioning into it because it was the best written era from both sides. WCW has to get credit for starting it. When Scott Hall showed up on WCW Wrestling, that, like, I had been out for a while because they had slowly been kind of writing Flair out. They had, and they didn't really want him. He'd done been to WWF and come back, and when Hall showed up, like, it got interesting. And,
Right.
it even led to a lawsuit, but the whole, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here, that whole thing like that, that, and then you take that and go to the extreme of WWF having DX and Austin and stuff, doing and saying things that a 16-year-old kid would do and say. Like,
Right.
It was entertaining. It was always funny. The Rock was always funny. WCW lacked that. If they'd have had more on, if they'd give Chris Jericho the microphone 10 times more than they did, they could have competed on the comical side. But they didn't have that. They, for what I give them credit for when we first started talking about being more realistic and being more reality-based, they tried to keep that through the 90s. And it did work to a degree, but not as much as the WWF just went, just say what you want to say. I mean, just look at some of the things they did say.
Yeah, how many times did we get in trouble for doing the DX circuit,
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, and I mean,
those high
there's
school teachers are not like that at
Yeah.
all.
an 80-year-old
Parents
woman
like-
gave birth to a hand. How
That
do
was
you-
stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was. Like,
wasn't their shining moment.
it was do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And you can see if you really go back and watch, like if you read much at all about Vince Russo, you can see when Vince Russo came in from the magazine and started actually writing, and he did help it. Like he changed it a lot. He helped it. But you can see when he goes out, you can see when he come into WCW, like the Jarrett thing when Jarrett laid down for Hogan, which at the time I was a fan of. I was like, Hogan's crying about not being champion, lay down for him. But that's one of the first real times that they broke kayfabe. That's the only time I'd ever seen it broke for the most part on WCW, and that probably
that
was a
was
nail in the
really-
coffin.
That was a problem with Vince Russo because he did it a few too many times.
Yeah.
You have that little shocking moment, like, is this real, is this fantasy, or is this actually going on? But then Russo kept doing it over and over and over.
It's a swerve.
It's swerve, yeah, pretty
It's
much.
a swerve, bro. It's a swerve. That's his, that was his principle for
Well,
doing
stop
everything.
swerving and go straight for a few minutes, please. But,
To me, I honestly think, regardless of how, like, I'm a big AJ Styles fan. I do like AJ Styles. I liked him in TNA, and I thought TNA honestly had a chance. When they had everybody that's top guy, they done the WCW thing. WCW took all of WWF's older talent, got everybody they could get, and took newer guys. And WWF took newer guys and built a new roster.
Right.
TNA had new guys. They had Samoa Joe. They had AJ Styles. They had new guys, new roster, and they were building that up. And, next thing you know, they start bringing in Hogan and
Yeah.
Bischoff and older guys. And
somehow the Nasty Boy snuck in there somehow. I don't get that still.
I believe DiBiase was there at one point in time.
He
I
may have
believe.
been, yeah.
I know Flair was because I started watching as soon as they brought Flair on. And Flair and Jay Lethal were worth watching. It was hilarious. And then you would come out with this big, which Bully Ray didn't do bad, but they come out with all the older guys, and WWF did the exact opposite, or WWE, whatever you call them now. They went in and took all those new guys that TNA should have been building a foundation off of, like AJ Styles, and took them and made them the biggest guys in the world. And then, I don't know, is TNA still in business?
Well, they're Impact now, and I think they're just barely in business. But the sad thing about that is, from everything I've read online, like I haven't watched it myself, but the shows have actually improved in quality. It isn't the crap fest that it usually used to be, I guess you'd say. I mean, it's actually a decent wrestling show, but now nobody watches.
It's just too late.
Yeah, I mean, they killed it off a long time ago.
Which, it wasn't completely their fault, but this wasn't really their fault. The last match I watched on there was Sting Hardy.
Oh, that was awful.
And that was one that just bummed you out. Like he was blown away.
I don't see why they brought Hardy out to the ring that night. You know, he was absolutely blowed out of his mind. So why would you put somebody in danger like that? Who was in charge there? Why couldn't they send 2 other guys out to beat up Sting and say, "Hey, this is going to be a 2-on-1 match now, brother. You know, come on, put up your dukes."
I don't know. It was a horrible choice because he was as blistered as I've ever seen a human being in my life.
That's crazy.
By far.
Now, if anybody's out there listening, you know, if you go back and watch it on YouTube, watch real closely, you know, because, you know, as Sting's coming in the ring, you can see Brian Hebner, referee. He's throwing the X. You know, the injury X, like signaling to the back, something's bad wrong, you know.
Right.
So at that point, you think they would just sent. I don't remember who was actually in the company at that moment, but you couldn't have sent somebody out like Kevin Nash to boot Sting and say, "I'm taking this match, man." You know, come on.
That might have been right before, might have been right at the time of the Bruce Pritchard point in time, the Brother Love, because he was like he left from he got fired for supposedly having the gun, WWF, and then went there and ran the show there. My understanding, or tried to. Like, I've heard a lot from him that Dixie was hard to kind of deal with. Not in a mean way, just she's got plenty of money. She does what she wants to do. She made her own action figure.
Well, okay.
I mean, you know, I would do that if I had plenty of money, but I'm also not the type of person that you put running a multi-million-dollar corporation. You know, I can't run my own household. You know, my wife does that.
You know, going back to what you said, you know, they set the bar too high, and I was thinking about, you know, like Goldberg. I said, you know, when he loses his first match, he'll never win another match after that. And that was pretty much true. And then you had Undertaker, who would come back once a year for WrestleMania or whatever, and he wasn't even able to walk out to the ring, and they were still letting him win matches. It's like, dude.
The reason he had all that fog is because he was using a walker.
They should have stopped with Undertaker. The reason being is they let Brock Lesnar take a streak. What did that do? Like, it didn't. It killed the Undertaker, and it didn't help Brock. Brock Lesnar didn't need any help. That dude he's a cat. He's got 9 lives. He quits to play football, which, for the record, if anybody remembers, he was horrible at and didn't even make it past the practice team. Right. But quits to play for the Minnesota Vikings, and like a normal person can't do that. But he did that, and then he quits to go be a fighter, which is backfired for Bobby Lashley, backfired for most guys, and he wins the title. And then now he's still champion, isn't he?
Yeah,
he kind of shows up when he wants.
You know, the rumor is that he'll lose it to Rollins at Mania, but, you know, we'll see. You know, we've said, you know, Brock's going to lose at Mania all these times before.
Well, Braun Strowman is a monster. Why didn't he lose to Braun Strowman? Like, you got to have a monster beat the monster. Now Braun Strowman's a joke. I mean,
see, that kind of goes back to the whole old school thing of it, you know. Ric Flair always said, to be the man, you got to beat the man. So have, you know, Brock put somebody over, man, like Strowman or somebody like that. Because if he beats Brock, man, he's already gold right there. Like, this guy just beat Brock Lesnar, man.
According to his reputation, he doesn't have a problem with that. He's put guys over in the past. He put Cena over. Like, he doesn't seem to have a problem with that. So the problem has to be McMahon. It's a golden goose, and they don't want to kill it, I guess. That's the only thing I can figure out, because it doesn't make any sense. It's illogical. It's not.
Well, yeah, that's probably about it. But if you look at it real close, I mean, let's say Rollins does beat Lesnar at Mania. Is Lesnar automatically trash in our eyes? No.
No, he's still
the
a
Beast
monster.
Got beat one
Goldberg beat him.
Yeah.
Goldberg's a 60-year-old announcer that was a failed football player and no longer. I mean, he's never even fought MMA. Comes in, and I actually seen that match. That's one of the few matches I've watched over the years. And what's that last 2 minutes?
Yeah, it wasn't
Comes
very long.
in, spears him, pins him, and Lesnar's laughing before and after the match. Laughs, ha ha ha. They go back, and then they come back and collect money, and Lesnar ends up with the belt again. Like, Lesnar don't seem to care. He just wants paid. And, like, I don't have a problem. I actually like that. He just wants to pay, but he gets a lot of hate because of the way they handle him. But now that's like with Roman Reigns. Like, I don't know a lot about Roman Reigns other than – because, like I said, I don't really watch him more. But I do know enough from, you know, the way people talk is they were trying to force Roman Reigns down people's throat. And McMahon is bad for that. Mm-hmm. And everybody was having a very bad reaction to it. And now he's sick, you know. Like, he's obviously not coming back probably anytime soon, if at all.
Yeah, probably not, I'd say. But that's pretty much what happened, you know, because when the Shield first debuted, you know, in WWE, I mean, everybody was like, you know, these guys, they're incredible, and they'd all do their thing in the ring. Roman would go out and do that little kick, running down the beside the ring, and then jump up and kick the guy on the apron in the head. Like, man, that's an incredible spot. That's awesome, But then they broke him up and put him singles. Then you kind of see like Roman, might not be as great in the ring as we thought he was, because he's not got the guys behind him to hide all of his weaknesses anymore.
Right.
But he did gradually improve in the ring. But by that point, Vince was pushing him so hard, like, this is our guy, Look at, wonderful Roman Reigns. He's beating everybody, and everybody's like, God, frig off already,
They break guys up too quick too. Like those factions. Like, you look how long the Horsemen were together, and they went through some bad versions of the Horsemen. Like, I try to ignore the Mongo McMichaels version and stuff like that.
Mongo gets no love.
And to me, like,
Mongo was better than Paul Roman.
A lot of people knock the Benoit Malenko, but to me, those guys were classic. Those were classic Horsemen. They were real Horsemen.
I liked them. Yeah.
But they stayed together long enough through all, which they are a little different. I mean, they had a lot of longevity, but Wyndham was big before he joined, but it helped Wyndham. It gave him a push. Mm-hmm. That helped Sting. It gave him a push. Tully and Arn were able to leave the company and go somewhere as a top-paid tag team before Tully got busted for coke.
Right.
And, it helped those guys. And with DX, I don't think Triple H is where, even if he is sleeping with the boss's daughter, he's not where he is now without being in DX. But DX lasted long enough. Mm-hmm. The NWO lasted too long. Everybody in the company was in the NWO.
Yeah.
They had to sign.
I think I was in the NWO at one point.
They had a referee in the NWO. Was Norman Smiley ever in the NWO? That might be the only
Norman
guy.
Smiley.
He should have been.
He might have been the one guy that wasn't.
He might have. It was
him
Norman
and Ralphus,
Smiley.
I think, were it.
And DDP never went. So it was just the yoga guy and Norman Smiley. That's it. They didn't make it.
But we've been talking a lot about that, like stables and stuff. And we were kind of talking about this in chat the other day. One stable that really doesn't get as much love, is the Dangerous Alliance.
Oh, that's just because they got the best manager of all time,
Yeah,
Paul Heyman.
if you sit and wrote down everything on a piece of paper, Joe would love this because I don't think he remembers the Dangerous Alliance. But your lead guy was Rick Rude, who at the time in WCW was just their biggest heel. Everybody absolutely just white hot heat hated Rick Rude.
He would put like if he was feuding with you, like he would put your wife's face on his crotch of his pants and come out and do his, and that's
everybody hated. I mean,
the ravishing one. I remember him. I just don't remember the Dangerous.
But you put that in like a Southern audience, They really hated that. Then you had Steve Austin, who ended up, at the time was probably one of the top 5 workers in the country.
Stone Steve was awesome.
I mean,
he was just as good as when they would let him talk, he was good. McMahon's one had a problem letting him talk.
Right. I mean, he could wrestle. I mean, he'd actually wrestle and actually have great matches and stuff. And then let's see who else. You had Bobby Eaton.
Beautiful.
Probably
Bobby.
one of the most underrated workers ever. Best tag team worker ever, probably. And I can say that, and stand on, Road Warrior Hawk's coffee table and say the same thing. Bobby Eaton's probably the best tag team worker ever.
No doubt.
Yeah. And then Larry Z, was that a guy? Larry Zbyszko?
Larry Zbyszko.
Yep.
Living legend.
And I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, and I'm feeling horrible for it.
Yeah.
Rude, Austin, Zbyszko, Eaton, Arn Anderson.
Arn Anderson.
God forgive me, Arn
The
Anderson.
enforcer. He was. That was one point. That was when he was there, Flair was on his way to WWF. He'd already went with the big go.
In the fall of 91, he went on to WWF for about a year and a half.
Didn't NWO do a skit one time on Arn Anderson, making fun of him for being an alcoholic?
It was great.
Kevin Nash come out with a pillow under his shirt and a 6-pack of beer. You can have my spot, brother, not my dog spot, not my liver spot, my spot.
Well, that's because they wasted a storyline. He comes out and gives. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Come out and give Perfect his spot. This big thing that old school wrestling fans would have loved. He gives him his spot, and then they just wasted. The writing's just thrown. I forget what. A couple days later, he turned on him, something like that.
Yeah,
but now the impression was that if they would have done more of that, because DX was doing it, and DX was doing it wonderfully. Stone Cold was doing it in ECW amazingly. He would do the whole thing, and talk about Vince and talk about Ted Turner and stuff. Like, it was good. And WCW needed that. Like, they needed some comic relief because they had none. Because the DX skits were now there's no way this ever happened. But do you remember when DX come out and was it Owen that had blackface? I mean, not the nation come out and they came out as a nation.
No, it was Waltman that had that.
Waltman had the blackface.
Mark Henry.
The dude that does all the impressions, the little kid that done all the impressions, was playing Owen Hart.
Jason Sensation.
Yes. But they come out
awesome.
in blackface. Can you imagine that now? Ted Danson's the only dude in the world that can successfully do blackface and it not be bad.
No, if somebody ever finds out today that he did that back then, he will be, dead guy.
Yeah, they would shut down the whole network.
What, this happened in 1997? What?
You don't have to worry about that because we're on you're literally on like a 5-minute cycle right now. If it didn't happen 5 minutes ago, it's hard. If it happened 5 minutes ago and it goes viral, that's one thing. But
unless he ever tries to do Congress stuff, get elected for something, they bring it up.
Don't ever run for Congress, dude. They'll see that, and it'll be a big to-do.
You're not getting off the hook.
They'll drag out his yearbook.
Will Sasso did the best Stone Cold impression ever, and he'd come out there with Stone Cold, and at first, they was sharing a beer together, and you're like, oh, Stone Cold loved it, then of course he had to stun him, but those were some of the greatest skits and wrestling history, I think.
The one that, I didn't realize it while I was watching him, but if you go back and watch it now, Kurt Angle is funny as crap. and Kurt Angle with Edge and Christian is hilarious. But Kurt Angle with the milk truck, that's probably
that's great.
That was pretty awesome. The milk truck was a pretty good. That was a pretty
I just wanted to be with the writers for WWE, just, during the Stone Cold era, we're like, what can we put him in today? Whose car can we destroy or whatever?
Yeah.
Cause Zambonis, cement trucks. He drove with all the beer trucks, monster trucks. And he did it all.
And the Bloodmobile.
Yes.
I think they were in Kentucky, weren't they, when they did that?
Yeah, I kind of think he had some kind of deal with Tim Short or something. He just turned up
just
all
like
his
everybody
cars.
else. We left him.
That was a free mention. Next time it costs you.
Yeah.
Say your name.
Send the check payable too.
Unless nobody listens, then we'll do it for free.
A couple payments off my truck or something,
They definitely had a vehicle fixation with him, but he was hurt. He was hurt mode. That's something I really didn't realize until just reading some stuff and watching some behind the scenes. He was hurt 90% of his run. If they had got him 2-3 years before that when he was still somewhat healthy, I mean, Owen Hart with the pile driver, and I've heard it both ways, but I think Austin's still pretty firm that he told him not to do the sit-out power bomb.
Yeah.
Or not the, legs out. And him basically breaking his neck right there, that killed that run. It hadn't even got started yet. So the whole time they were just trying to keep him from getting – he couldn't wrestle. Yeah. So he had to run over something. He made it to be the biggest wrestler in the world. And very seldom do I take up for Hogan. I'm going to take up for Hogan here. They say Austin's the best seller of all time merchandise-wise. But that was during the Internet age. Mm-hmm. Hogan's very close without the Internet age. Mm-hmm. So in the Internet age, I think Hogan would squash him. That was a level of famous that I don't think any wrestler's ever going to reach again. But he made it to that level and be that big, hurt and stayed hurt. He never really recovered completely.
Yeah, I watched one of them autobiographies of him, and he was talking about wrestling, how he's got hurt and his knees were shot and everything. And at the end of it, it broke my heart because he's like, I can't imagine waking up tomorrow and not being able to wrestle. And and if you notice after he quit wrestling, he still hung on to the wrestling, just being the manager, the owner, whatever they made him. They tried to put him with a little bit of everything.
They didn't have a whole lot of choice because his name was still so hot. They brought him in for everything they could,
And it worked every time.
It worked every single time. And it would now. Look, if I go home and I hear Austin's going to be on Raw tomorrow night, I'm going to watch Raw for the first time. I don't know how long. I don't even have cable. I would get cable.
I was watching all them shows he hosted too, well, there's one where they was on that island or whatever, and they had to do all them things. I watched it. I'm watching The Rock's new, whatever it is, too, Titan.
I've not seen it yet. I've heard about it.
It's actually good. It's on Hulu. I don't have cable either, but it's on Hulu.
Well, that's me. I'm a I either stick with Netflix, Hulu, or Tubi because Tubi's free.
But they call him DJ now, and it drives me crazy.
DJ?
Yes, Dwayne Johnson.
No.
They call him DJ?
Yes.
Like
every
on Full
time,
House?
Yes, every time I hear that's what I'm thinking, DJ on Full House. I'm
Or
glad you
Roseanne, I
DJ.
guess.
And he's like, oh, the people's eyebrow. And I'm like, no.
Does he say, oh, my Lanta?
Oh, jeez.
I want to put the microphone down now.
Mic drop. That's it. That's all you get for the day. You're welcome. Oh, no, I even give you some applause for that. Small little laugh track.
Congratulations.
That's as advanced as we got. We got some clapping and we got a small laugh track, and the greatest intro music ever.
When Tim shortcuts us that check, we can get better.
Yeah, Tim, if you want to send a check, like we definitely need to upgrade. If this is even recording, we
get to be wasting our
it's
time.
going to be 42 minutes wasted at this point.
Four of us and some guy washing dishes is the only ones ever going to do it.
Well, we sit and messed with it before we got started, and the more I thought, it was like I said, if we don't mess up the first time, so people can listen to it and tell us what all we did wrong and what we need to fix, then it wouldn't be worthwhile. It'll probably sound horrible, but the next one will sound better. I'll figure out what we did wrong.
Oh, we're having a good time, and that's what it's all about.
Like I said, it's an excuse to hang out.
And could you imagine if we would have tried doing something like this when we were in high school, like 22, 23 years ago? We would have had cassette tape recorders with dial-up internet.
And
hang
Joe,
on, I've only got 20 hours left on America Online. Hang on, let me see if I can get this uploaded.
Joey and myself would stand a good chance at prosecution, I believe,
Yes.
because Joey and myself would not be able to restrain ourselves. I did not need YouTube. Like, kids today, like, I do a lot. I've got a YouTube channel, and I use it a lot, especially, like, to help with my books and stuff. But if I'd had that at 16, I probably would not have the wonderful life that I have today, because I would have said and done things that did not need to be on YouTube. So these kids can have that. I'm tickled I got it now, but I did not. I'm glad we didn't.
Oh, could you imagine?
No, I'd still be in trouble. I would.
You would.
I'm just super glad they got rid of GeoCities and stuff, because if that ever came up, some of the stuff I put on my GeoCities page.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You better hope this never gets famous, because if it ever does, if this ever gets popular, somebody's looking.
It's like
Josh White,
GeoCities.
WHITE.
You can still bring that up.
Let's
Dirty
hope
White Boy.
not.
You can.
Hey, don't get them any hints.
This dude knows his
Like when my
ICQ
old
number
college roommates
still.
found out how to find like the GeoCities graveyard online or something like that. And if you know how to do it, you can bring up pictures and texts from specific GeoCities and X-page websites and stuff. It's insane.
I'm still trying to figure out how to work MySpace, because my band had a MySpace page, and the only videos we got of us playing are on there, and I can't get them. I can't download them. I can't listen to them. You can't watch them.
That sucks.
I've tried that and tried that. God.
Oh, no.
Sorry, just got a message from ICQ.
Well, I had mentioned that we had talked about that several times in the past, and I downloaded it, messed with it and stuff. And then you said you still remembered, like, your ID number or whatever from
Yeah.
ICQ?
I still remember the number, but I couldn't tell you the password, or if it even works.
both because I typed them in so much.
I can't remember neither one of them.
Apparently, I wrote mine down a
597,
lot, because I didn't even remember having to type it in. So apparently, like, I just started. That's how me and my wife started talking. We started talking on ICQ, and then after that, like, I don't know that I ever used it again. I used it a ton, and I didn't have internet like for most of high school. Like, we had it, but it wasn't very good internet, and like I just didn't use it. I was one of them weird outside kids.
No,
I used it, but it wasn't for good things.
Well, I mean, when I did use it, it wasn't for ICQ.
My mom didn't have internet at her house until I was well into college. I'm going to say 2002, maybe 2003. Like, I was one of those kids in the 90s that did not have the internet, and I think a lot of them back then didn't. I remember maybe 4 or 5 people talking about the internet, quote unquote, and nobody else knew what they were talking about.
Well, you talk about missing the boat. I'd say probably, I guess I graduated grade school in 96. So in about 93, my grandpa got me a Packard Bell 750 Legend, whatever, brand new. He bought it in one of his pallets. You know, he used to have a store and sold all this stuff, and here's this computer there, and he's like, I don't know what that thing is, but it's, you know, in the way of my other stuff. And I was like, can I have it? He's like, yeah, this thing's brand new in the box. So I opened up, there's a printer there with printer paper.
That was a $3,000 computer.
Yeah. And I mean, this thing's brand new, and I get a disc for the, and like I said, me and Lance Childers would sit and I'd type stuff constantly. I'd do my own little magazine about ghosts and UFOs and stuff like that, and I'd write scripts for movies, and I'd write and stuff on it all the time. I used to play the karate game, like the kung fu game that was the arcade game. They had the version of it that was on there, and I had a chess game, and I'd sit and play that stuff constantly. And then I just kind of quit messing with it. So I had this head start on everybody, and then I just quit messing with it.
Let it go by the wayside.
Then after I spent like my whole senior year of high school at the vocational school with Scotty Stamper learning computer repair and technology and networking, and went back as an adult student and went and got a job in it. Worked for about 3 months, never looked back. Now I'm lucky to turn on a computer. I had all these opportunities to be, but like there's no way my daughter could imagine, because I can think we've had internet almost her whole life. Like, when we didn't have internet, she was so little. Like, because when we first got married, we couldn't afford internet at the house, but we had internet at my mom's house or Rachel's mom's house. But, like, we didn't have internet at the house when we first got married. So, up to about 5 or 6, we probably didn't have internet. But from then on, Katie's had internet her whole life.
Right.
My son, like, he's had an iPad in his face his whole life. Like, he's never going to know what it's like to not have internet. Like, that's
it's a strange thought, and it's kind of tragic in a way,
It is, like, but I get I'm kind of torn on that one, because, like, I wouldn't get to talk to you all at all. Like Jeremy, I see Jeremy, but, like, I haven't seen Eric's funeral may be the last time I seen you.
Yeah,
and that's been
a
a long
while
time
back,
ago.
yeah.
And Joey, I think I've seen you twice in probably the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, run into me at Walmart. Yeah.
I'll look at you from around the corner, kind of follow you some when you're not looking. But other than that, like, we don't hardly ever see each other.
That's what I did with Josh for years, man. He just disappeared, and I'd see him out with his, new wife, and I'd be jealous and just follow him around everywhere they went.
Well, when we come up with the idea of doing this, I would kind of message Joey on the side, but there's no way Josh is going to do this. We've spent years and years of just on, tagging him in everything and acting like he's so above us and won't talk to us. I was like, there's no way. This guy has to hate us by this point. There's no way he's going to come do this. Because I've put hashtag or tagged the Josh White on almost everything I posted for probably 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
Every single post he may listen to.
And he got
every
to, like,
single one.
He wouldn't even, respond. He just...
How do you respond to something like that?
He wasn't even on there.
It would get to the point that me and Joey would just see how many times we could tag you in the comments of a post, and we would just do it non-stop. Like, that's what my day was. Like, I mean, I'm lucky I didn't get fired, because that's what I've done at work a lot of times. That's probably why they laid me off. Like, oh, that's the Josh White kid. Just get rid of him. That's all he does.
Let's make all this Josh White. Bring him in here. We need to, let's get this guy. He must be something. But no. Now, how do you respond to something like that?
I'd be flattered. Nobody ever does me like that.
Yeah. Nobody likes us, do they, Joe? We're those people that, Jeremy and Josh they're decent human beings. They avoid us.
Well, sometimes.
Define decent.
I'm the type of guy you see at Walmart and everybody just like, oh, look, it's him. And they turn around and walk the other way. Or wave from a distance and just keep running on trucking.
I used to think that was like an exaggeration, because I've heard people you see it all the time, and people are getting so bad, like they'll avoid people in public and not want to talk to people and not want to, like they'll go out of their way. I'm like, oh, wait, I'm not. I'll yell at you from 3 aisles down. I'm like, hey, come here, And I was like, that can't be possible. No, people do that. Like, I see people avoid me all the time.
People that have known each other their entire lives will actively avoid one another in the grocery store and stuff now, and that is so strange.
Well, I mean, people do me that way all the time, but, like, I understand.
Well, everybody wants to be, like, part of my Facebook, because all I do is, like, stupid stuff and get put in Facebook jail.
You do
stuff.
have some of the best
like,
posts on Facebook.
Like, now I go through the drive-through at, like, McDonald's, and the manager's like, hey, man, you been in Facebook jail lately? And I'm like, no, not lately. And I mean, like Josh said, how do you respond to that, Are you out of Facebook jail yet? And you're like,
no,
oh,
I've been in real jail,
But, like, I see these people out on the street, and they won't talk to me. They're just like, oh, it's him.
Because they've read your Facebook posts.
It's like that post those Brett Kavanaugh memes all the time.
That's the guy that makes Brad Holland or
That's the
Brad
wild.
Holland want to kill himself.
That's the wild guy. Do you still have?
Brad alone? Come
Yeah.
He's going to be
If he's
listening to
listening,
this
I
more
love him.
likely, and he's going to be really upset. You know?
He's going to say it's stupid, but I still love him.
He's a good guy.
We all
He
love
is.
Brad. We do.
Yeah.
I did delete him off Facebook.
Well, I did block him, but that's beside the point. Like, he's a good dude. Like, it's not.
But
I don't want to
like him.
argue. I just don't
really
want to argue. All
The
the time.
dude's an encyclopedia of like 80s trivia and stuff.
Oh,
It's
I'm-
like
he's-
he would be a shoe-in for this sort of thing.
He's
As a
he's a,
guest.
he's a good dude. Like, I can sit and
he's
talk to
got,
him in
like-
person. I just can't do it on Facebook.
Apparently, he's got like a collection of like old VHS tapes too, like one of the biggest collections ever.
He's got some great stuff.
Like, yeah.
Some great. I've seen some. Like, he's got some quality stuff.
So
Did I
anybody
show-
listen to this and they know him, need some trivia, you know, can't think of a dude's name in a B-class horror movie, you know, just give him a call.
Just don't ask him, you know, about the new Green Deal or anything like that.
Yeah.
Don't,
Don't talk
don't ask him
politics.
about his home county
No.
or politics, because that's the one that that's the one that got me. We couldn't jive on that
Do
one.
not mention the trail ride under any circumstances.
Or the Gingerbread Festival, or anything
We
that
have
goes
a trail
on.
ride. Look, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's go.
We are way off track.
There's no track here. I
We
don't
went
even
from
remember
Ration
how.
Rick Rude to the Knott County Trail Ride.
That
That's
is
Brad
the-
Holland what he thinks about Rick Rude. Brad, what do you think about Rick Rude? Yeah. You know?
Comment on, you know, our review page on iTunes and let us know, Brad. We know you're going to listen to this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do.
Zero
Yeah, he
stars.
probably. I think he subscribes to my YouTube page. I'll probably put this up on YouTube, and then I've subscribed to his. Yeah. So
You know, we're the only four that's going to be listening to this anyway.
it's probably no.
But Brad, if you are
No.
listening, write the check to.
I want to make my wife listen to it, so there's going to be at least 5.
I'll need proof I was here tonight anyway.
My-
So.
You
We're gonna
guys,
say no just to get you in trouble.
you guys know Tyler Ramey, right?
Yes.
Me and Tyler Ramey used to play in a band together back in right around 04, 05, and back in the MySpace days. And we had a web show. We'd set up a web camera, and every Saturday night we'd do a web show. We'd stream it live on Ustream, and then we'd put the link on MySpace. We do it every, and my wife would constantly listen because she would. This one will be a lot more PG than that one was, but it'll surprise you who will listen, especially if people don't like you. So me and Joey are probably going to bring in a lot of listeners.
We're going to get a lot of listeners.
Nobody's coming for you guys, but me and Joey's going to bring in a lot of listeners.
Random fact about Tyler you might not know, when he was like in kindergarten
5'3"?
or first grade. Yeah, he's
We
like
all know
extremely
that.
short. And that might be why his rat's tail looks so long, but he had a rat tail like, man, it was like almost below his butt cheek. I mean, like, that thing was huge. Wow. Yes. I mean, he was short, but still, I mean.
It was like a
impressive
2-foot
either
long
way,
rat
though.
tail,
It
but
was,
still. I've seen a couple of like those are coming back. I've seen those.
Really?
Yeah,
Rat tails
are
are.
coming. I had one when I was little.
I
Rat
did
tails
too.
coming
Are they
back.
rat tails or are they like the Padawan, you know, the little
No,
braid
they're
that they
legit
have?
rat tails. There's one where you work at. There's a legit rat tail. Probably about, there's a legit, and I mean it's like this long. It's sweet. Like they're wider now than these. Like like mine was kind of concentrated. Mine was about like that, but like they get up to that now. But I've seen quite a few of them.
I had an old
It's really
man
good for
barber.
radio listeners out there. If he went from that to that to that with his fingers.
On this hand, it went from here to here on the no thumb hand.
He's got a nub and his index finger, and he's going back and forth in contrast.
We'll add
Showing-
video at some point.
When we can afford it.
Yeah, my old barber, man, I ain't gonna mention his name. I think he's still cutting hair, and he should be like 150 by now. But you tell him like, don't cut the rat's tail, and he'd cut it every time. Like I told you not to. He's like, oh, I'm sorry about that.
I think your parents were in on that one.
I think he just really hated her. Their dad was back there
Yeah.
going, do it.
I had one for years, and the only reason I kept it was because the girls would braid it in class.
That's a solid plan right there.
And it was a very solid plan. It worked. I still remember it like 30-some years later, so that's a testament to how effective it was.
I loved mine. But I was watching a video of my son the other day on YouTube, and it's kids react or something like that, and it's going through and it's showing these kids. And it's showing them like one of them was Sonic the Hedgehog, but the other one was the first Mario game. They're actually having to play it on an NES, and one kid has a members jacket on, members only jacket.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like I'm a little too young to like. I remember them, but we were poor, so like I didn't have them at that point in my life. So like I don't know if they were how much longer they made it, but like everything's coming back. Everything's coming full circle.
Well, you know, I've got a daughter at 16, and all she listens to is 80s music on vinyl.
I've got a daughter.
So
My
vinyl
daughter's
is
21. She listens to
huge
horrible music.
among the younger demographic.
Yeah, I mean,
Like as a collector myself, I notice things like that, and it is that Generation Z age group that is keeping the vinyl community afloat right now. As odd as that is to imagine.
yeah, that is weird. I mean, because, you know, it used to be, you know, she'd want like iPod or, you know, something like that, you know, MP3 player type things. But now, you know, her birthday, her 16th birthday, her sweet 16th birthday, record player. I'm like, a record player, really? You know, and then she asked for all these different records, and I'm like, are you serious?
That makes me feel old. I swear it does.
Yeah,
And you know, but you know, the thing about that is now that everything's coming back like that, you know, you can find all these old classic albums now back on re-released on vinyl.
Yeah.
Like I was just walking by Walmart, you know, earlier today, and they had "Injustice for All" on vinyl.
Really?
Right there in Walmart. I'm like, oh, that's
Absolutely.
incredible, you know?
Absolutely. It's just weird seeing records in Walmart.
Right? Yeah, that's.
I love it. Don't get me wrong. You know, I've been into that for over 10 years now, but it's just so amazing to see and to think back to when we were kids, when you would see 45s on the music racks and stuff, and to see it now, like I said, it's just an amazing thing.
Yeah, and to add to that too, if you walk through Walmart right this second, you'll see a big bin in the middle of the aisle full of $5 CDs.
Right.
The CDs cast into a big bin, you know. But in a place of prominence on the shelf on the wall are the vinyls.
Yeah. Right beside of Pac-Man arcade games.
You know, like what's going on?
It's bizarre, but I love it.
It's crazy.
I mean, there's actually a record store in Letcher County.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Lacey Hill? Lacey Hill,
Yeah.
her and her
Yeah,
husband
Lacey.
run a record store, and it's been there for like a couple years.
What's it called?
It's
Roundabout?
not-
Roundabout Music Company.
See, Lacey, now you owe us a check.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's. I need to keep
Hey,
a
y'all
list
go-
of these people.
Y'all go check out, what'd you say, Roundabout? Record
Roundabout
store?
music.
Yeah.
But now they do some live shows, our local shows. Whitesburg's got a neat little area there, though. Like they've got a lot of little stuff
I
going
love
on out
Whitesburg,
there.
Where would that be located at? I don't.
Well, you know where the tattoo shop is? We were
Yeah.
talking about the parlor room. Write your check to us. It's literally right on that corner, right from there.
It's
so
right
you
at the
can go,
roundabout.
yeah, you can go from the parlor room to Roundabout Music
And it's
in
such
one
a
stop.
Neat little store, man. They got local artwork there, and just about any vinyl record you want. I've gone in there looking for some pretty specific things before, and they've had it at a decent price, so you can't beat it if you're into that sort of thing.
You know, helping local people too at the same time.
Absolutely.
So, and good people too. You know, I've known Lacey for a long time. I think she's actually a distant cousin, if Mom tells me correctly. But
So I mean, the check could even be a little bit bigger that way.
yeah, see, you know, since you know
Advertise.
your family and I have plugged you a little bit here, you know.
If this ever goes national, no one will know what we're talking about. But we're making our money.
Could you
off it.
imagine somebody in California listening to us talking about Whitesburg and stuff like that?
No, I think the name alone would trigger Whitesburg. That would trigger them.
Possibly.
I mean, they would have come up with some reason why that's a horrible name, and it would trigger them.
But if some guy in California is like, "Why is that guy going on about Bobby Eaton for some reason?" You know, then I think we've hit gold.
Everybody in California knows about beautiful Bobby Eaton. I'm assuming honest with you. James E. Cornette made all them guys famous.
There you go.
Did you ever watch that? He went through the drive-through down there somewhere. That was like
Losing
went
hype.
crazy.
Oh,
Yeah,
when he
yeah,
went
Yeah, oh
crazy.
my God, man.
Yeah.
Like that was like one of the greatest things I ever seen in my life.
He has a podcast you need to listen to because he goes off like that every time.
It is wonderful,
Yeah.
yes.
I'll be honest with you. The first podcast I ever listened to was yours. Like, you know, the first one you put on, I'm like, I gotta see what we're getting ourselves into.
There's some good ones out there, man. Joe
Oh,
Rogan
yeah.
has an amazing podcast.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about Joe Rogan's, but I just, you know,
It's, I mean, like, they're 3 and 4 hours long, and I'll listen to it. Podcasts have taken over TV for me. Like, I don't really watch TV anymore. When I'm in a vehicle in the mornings going to work or going somewhere, like if it's early in the morning, it's generally a podcast. It's usually Joe Rogan, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, or Weird Appalachia. There's some people from up around, I believe, Sayersville. And they've got an interesting podcast. And then I'll listen to that. And then on the way home, it's usually music. And that's just kind of how I bounce out. But even sitting at the house, like I'll get on YouTube and watch Joe Rogan on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like Joe Rogan, he may have, like he's working on Kanye West hard Like, and it'll honestly be it'd be one of the few times I ever want to hear what Kanye West has to say. But he'll have a physicist on one day and a microbiologist the next day, and then a UFC fighter the day after that, and then Sturgill Simpson 2 days after that. Like, the mix is so eclectic of people he's got, and it's always a good show. Like, it's always worth watching.
Watching or listening
to. I watch it just as much because he puts each episode like he does it himself, so it's a good quality feed. He puts every episode on YouTube, and he's got video. I mean, he's probably the king of podcasts right now. He's got the best setup,
and he has such an expansive knowledge about anything. Like, as diverse as his guests are, he can carry a conversation with them regarding anything from particle physics to religion to politics to UFC to anything in between. It's amazing. He
sit down with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he doesn't sound stupid. Like, he can carry his part of the conversation. Like, and you don't really expect that from Joe Rogan. Like, I'm not huge on his stand-up. I wasn't crazy about news radio. How I come across it, I don't know. But, like, I love his podcast. It's great.
I never did know that he was an MMA fighter till years after he done Fear Factor.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember him from Fear Factor. Like, that show grossed me out. I can't stand to watch people eat weird stuff.
I wasn't a fan.
It's not as gross as messages I get from Joey, but it's
they're on par. Some of them are.
Hey, come on.
No, look, you all get.
They don't.
Lot.
No, they don't get them. I won't send them. I definitely won't send them to Josh.
My day has been ruined so many times. So many days I've woke up and just like, man, this is my day. Everything's great. The sky's blue. The birds are singing. Kids are healthy. Everything's awesome. JoJo sent me a message. Just look at this. And then, like, you can just see the life leaving my face. Rachel was like, did you read another one of Joey's messages? I'm like, yeah, I watched the video. Like, it starts out as such an innocent video. And then by the end, you're like, oh, man. Like, you don't, like, it's a good thing I don't suffer from depression, because if I did, like, you could have triggered me numerous times. Like, it's not safe. Like, don't. But but you want to see it. You can't help it.
People say, "Why do you send that?" or "Why do you look at that?" I'm like, I ain't the one looking it up. I'm not going to Google and searching this stuff. They send it to me. It ruins my day. I send it on other people.
You got to pay it forward, don't you, Joe?
Why do we watch it when you send it? You can't. It's like a car wreck.
Like
you can't look away. It's a lot worse than a car. I've seen. Yeah. Yeah, that's for a completely. That's not for a podcast. That's for a therapy session.
We don't.
When you and I end up having to go to group therapy, it'll be the other 4 horsemen.
Well, luckily for both of you, I'll be a therapist in December. So.
That is right. Yeah, that's awesome.
JoJo needs you bad, and I need you as a result of JoJo.
You got me.
Like, but be prepared. You're going to have to experience what I experienced to understand how far gone he is. And
so I'm just going to start sending the videos to him and let him to get a head story.
I would wait till his training's complete, because
daily.
he may back out. He may just call an audible and be like, "Look, I mean, I know Burger King's hiring, and I can't deal with this."
There's like dark humor, and then there's like my humor. Yeah,
it's its own level.
You can't it. It is very hard to offend me, and it has happened a few times in my life. And sadly, I can't say it on podcast what it was, but I've been offended a few times. That's just, it's hard to do. It really is.
I don't know that I get offended. Like, you don't offend me, but like, it's hard to eat sometimes. Like someone like, I mean, I don't ever look at anything and go like, if it's to the point of like it would normally offend people, I go, there's people like that out there. It's kind of funny. But then again, we can't. You can't do it justice here.
My job is what's done it to me, and because everybody I work with gets my humor, But then I accidentally send it to somebody on the other side, and I send it, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Sorry, my bad. Didn't mean that."
I get it. That's what makes me feel bad about myself after. Because sometimes I'll read it and I'll laugh and I'll show it to my wife, and that's my moral barometer. I'll be like, "Look at this," and if she laughs, I'm like, "Oh God, we got to spend less time together. I'm ruining you." And if she don't laugh, I'm like, "I'm still a horrible person."
You all have probably missed a lot of posts that I've actually posted. My wife looks at it and goes, "No, delete it." So I have to go back and delete it.
Post wise with Facebook, I'm pretty good because I'll write it, read it, then delete it and just go on. Because, like, I don't have the energy anymore. You got more energy than I do. I don't have the energy.
Hey, I love making people think. And, like, if they get on there and they read something, they go, ugh, I have to tell somebody I'm offended by that.
But they're not thinking.
Then I just let
They're
them
just getting
fight.
offended.
You know, just let them argue, and I sit back and laugh. I think it's hilarious.
Well, I laugh at the responses to
sorry.
yours, too.
But, you know, it was like, I can't believe you said that. And I'm like, you know.
I sneak in with a little gif, and I sneak back out. That's what it may be, a meme here and there. I just can't. I don't know, dude. I can't. I don't have the patience for it. Like, people aren't going to think, they're not going to change their mind. They're not going to be fair. So
if people wouldn't reward me with, hey man, you're really funny. Even like people like that go to church, a lot of stuff, they private message me. They don't like or comment or anything. They're just like, hey, you are hilarious. Don't let nobody take you down, you know? So I'm like,
that's not what they say around me.
Like, I'm going to turn it up a little bit and see what I can do, you know? But I have got some, hey, you're going to go to hell for that. You need to stop.
You are. Trust me. I've seen them.
I send stuff to you on private messenger that I'm afraid to post myself, hoping that you'll post it.
I think a lot of people do that.
I do that a lot. And the thing is,
Hey,
I'll send it, and then I'll look at it again. I'm like, that's nowhere near offensive enough for Joey. I might as well just go ahead and post it because it's not.
We know, like, we was talking about Lacey. Her brother Jonathan does me like that all the time. He sends me all kinds of stuff, and I think he knows I'll post it. So, which I probably should have called him out like that because he's probably like, no, don't tell nobody. But, you know.
Well, they don't know which ones. You offend on so many different fronts. It could be anything. You know?
See, you really see what's actually going on here. You're a meme mule.
That's right. That's right.
That's what's happened. They're mule and their memes through.
There's
you.
so many.
When you go to Facebook jail, you know they're getting off scot free.
He's keystering them in.
Fell for it.
Yes.
This broke down an hour in. There is no wrestling. It is all keystering memes. But that's okay. See,
This is the stuff we like.
all we needed was that wrestling to get us started, and then the real us came out.
Yeah, that's that pretty much happened.
We're all a little more comfortable now than we were an hour ago, I think.
Except for me, I have to go to the bathroom. Excuse me.
We'll be here, brother.
He's going to look for memes. Is what he's doing.
I've already made that run. I have the bladder of small children. I can't make it very long.
All right, so I got a question for you guys here. So bringing it back to wrestling, so we don't offend Joey anymore.
Not
So
gonna happen.
I know you guys. If you keep up the wrestling a little bit, you've heard of AEW, All Elite Wrestling.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious because even you kind of turned me on to NXT a little bit. Like I watch some NXT stuff because there's the chance for there to be a good company out there. But I'll read the articles when they come out. I've learned to never read the comments because wow, wrestling fans are harsh people. They're Joey level harsh. But the one thing I've seen a lot that I do agree with, until there's kind of a TV deal and a good TV deal, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make. And I don't think that the WWE is going to fight them too hard or even worry about them too much at first because I think they need the competition. I think they've realized that. Well, they can't be their own competition.
No,
it's just not going to work.
They've proved that since about 2001.
Yeah,
that they can't be their own competition. There's never been actual competition for Vince since he bought WCW. TNA came along and it looked like they were going to kind of be something.
They could have. If they would have handled things different, they could have never been WCW level, but they could have at least. Now, when they moved to Monday nights to go head to head, do you remember they actually, they did? They moved to Monday night. They were not in a position to do that at that time. I can't understand that move to save my life.
No.
But the thing with AEW, the only thing that worries me, I think Cody Rhodes is an amazing wrestler. He's very entertaining and stuff. But I don't know if he's a top guy. Maybe if you leave him in that element around guys like Bullet Club guys and guys like that, maybe he is that level guy. I don't know. But to me, I worry that there's a lot of those Kenny Omega type guy. To me, those guys have good matches with the right people, but they're going to have to bring in some more established names. I mean, you have to do that.
Yeah.
And those guys don't sell a lot of stuff. I like they're bad to no sell stuff, like you know, and I wonder how much that's gonna impact the product.
You know, but even if nothing else, I'm hoping it actually brings some form of competition. You know, because that makes because when WCW, came about and really had Vince against the ropes, that's when Vince shone. It's when he started to shine.
I think it definitely stands a possibility of benefiting the industry. And I mean, if you want to get technical, I'm not 100% sure, but I'd say if you check the dates, right around the time that WCW got big enough to kind of compete with WWF, and even probably sometime in that, Dusty was probably running WCW at that point in time. Mm-hmm. So, his dad was running, but there was a love-hate issue there, too. Like, to me, I always kind of, even when I was little, like, and that's when it happened when they brought in Dusty and the polka dots. Like, I always kind of thought they was kind of poking fun because I remembered Dusty enough from the magazines to know this is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And, like, I don't think they gave him a horrible push, but it didn't give him much, which he was older, but of course Ric Flair's 107, and could probably still wrestle for the title tomorrow in certain companies, like, but I don't think that they used Cody right because Cody's obviously done a whole lot outside. I've seen very little outside of there. But now Goldust, to me, I thought Goldust got a really big push. If you go back and look at all the opportunities they give Goldust, he just kept getting high. Like, that was the problem. Like, he kept messing it up himself. They give him a really good push. Yeah. And he is at least a memorable wrestler. I mean, we've talked about him twice. Mm-hmm. He's more memorable than Dustin Rhodes. That incarnation didn't make it very far.
But it all really depends with them, because they're two biggest stars they have, Chris Jericho, of course, everybody knows Jericho. Anybody even with a passing, like a passing knowledge of wrestlers knows who Chris Jericho is. And the other guy being one of the Japanese guys, Kenny Omega. Of course, he's Canadian, but he made his career in Japan, and he's probably hands down one of the 2 or 3 best wrestlers in the world, legitimately. But those are your 2 main guys, so you're going to have to build your company around those 2 guys. Cody can't come in and expect himself to be the world champion right away,
I don't think he's a very believable world champion for a long time. I think Kenny Omega is, and I think people are going to expect him to be. Right. But I think you almost have to start with Jericho. But Jericho doesn't do anything but make you stronger. Like, it makes a stronger company.
Right. But that's going to be, and, if you read a few of the rumor sites, maybe go on Reddit, and Joe distracted me with a nice little burp there. Okay.
Excuse me, guys.
What was I saying again? So, the rumor is a lot of the WWE locker room right now is looking for the release. Just the other day, the revival,
I wonder how much of that's true, though. There's so many guys. I'd say there's always people. Right. How many people they got signed? I'd say there's always people looking for a release.
It also could very well be, just, leverage, to get, better contract through Vince or whatever, But it makes you wonder, if this is true and people are out there, asking for the release to go work for another company, it could, give us as wrestling fans a little hope that, we're going to get something out of the WWE norm.
Something good's got to come from it.
Yeah, I mean, because maybe they'll start listening, and maybe, not push, wrestler A or wrestler B down our throats, and maybe give wrestler C a push for a while.
And maybe, like you was talking earlier about them being, they're back to being a G-rated show. Like, it's not that you don't need. The violence is what gets a lot of that R rating, and like you do need some of that violence, and they've taken that out. Like, they can't get color, they can't bleed at all. And like, they've taken a lot of that out, and like, even though it's fake, that has a lot to do with storytelling. But Stone Cold could not make it on Raw right now. There's no way. If you brought Stone Cold in his prime back to
because
they don't need to run it in the ground with that, because that's what happened the first time. They run it in the ground, and I mean, it's literally the right to censor. That's where the whole group come from, is they were getting sued every time they turn around by a group with a similar name. So, you don't have to run it in the ground, but if somebody would come out with something that was a little more adult, which it goes in cycles. Like, it started out as more of a childish like thing, and then the storylines got more adult, and then it's went back. I think it goes in a cycle. I think it's coming back around to that, because I think you had all these fans that started at a younger age, grew up with it, and now they're going back and catching younger. Look, the dude's evidently McMahon's a genius, because I mean he literally took on the world. Like, it was all territorial wrestling before him, and he changed everything.
Yeah, but I think something we ain't touched base with, and the reason why I really don't like wrestling nowadays, well, besides the storylines, is the announcers.
Oh, yes.
The announcing absolutely just flat out is no good.
No heart.
I don't know if we could ever change that. Like, if that'd be hard for people like us because it's either JR and King. For me, like, it's Bobby Heenan. Like, and a lot of people, you know, there's people I know feel that way, but I know a lot of people disagree with that. Like, it's all King and JR for them. I think JR is amazing. I think King's funny. But that was another reason why I like WCW. I think Bobby Heenan is the funniest non-comedian I've ever heard in my life.
Sure.
You know,
He had that really quick wit.
Yeah.
You know, and that really.
But, you know, I mean, like, they actually, even though you know it's fake and you're watching it and, you know, whatever, the announcers always put you right in the action.
Right.
You know, they had, like you said, heart. They wanted you to feel it. But nowadays, it's like they're reading off a script and it's like,
That's pretty much it.
you know, they have no, I don't know, it just ain't got no heart, man.
well, they really were for a long time because McMahon was always in their earpiece telling them, and I think he still is. I've heard that's one of the few things he still has to do.
He does
with
and,
wrestling.
You know,
so they're going by McMahon. I think
and
McMahon's just got out of touch.
Half the time he would ignore that too. When Vince is like, say something about his butt, JR, and then he'd just keep talking like, JR, I said talk about his butt. But you know, if you look back, even back to the early days of like, you know, Georgia Championship Wrestling, stuff like that, Florida, you know, the announcers, you know, like Gordon Soley, they got you invested in the match on TV. You know, if something big happened, you could tell in their voice and the way they registered and everything, like, you know, something major's happening, I need to pay attention. But now, you know, something big happens on Raw, and Michael Cole's like, wow, vintage Kurt Angle, you know, and like, how does that get me into anything? Wow.
Yeah.
You know? And,
I've heard a lot of guys, especially Bruce Pritchard being one of them inside guys that say that Michael Cole is really good at his job, but he doesn't get to do. And I don't know because I don't really listen to him. I wasn't crazy about him when he first started because it was different. I don't know that I could ever make that change. Like Tony Schiavone, I always liked King and JR. I got used to McMahon because he was there so long. I won't say I didn't like
What
McMahon.
a
but
maneuver.
yeah, like McMahon was so grandiose, and in the way he done things, like it was a little over the top. But you know, I guess I got used to it. But I don't know. It'd be hard for me. It'd have to be somebody I knew. You know, it's the guys that just took the hardest lick. I wish could have, like, Jake the Snake, psychology wise, greatest wrestler of all time. I think he would make an amazing announcer, but I don't ever see him being able to do that. You know,
Right, yeah. And, you know, like I say, you know, if Michael Cole is that talented, you know, maybe he needs to unplug that headpiece for just a few minutes and just call the match the way it's supposed to be. Get us invested in it for some reason, you know, other than, you know,
that
give us something, Mikey. Come on, you know.
that'd give the new company something to strive for because that's definitely something they got to fix. Because
And, you know, they've got guys in that company that could be that. You know, Moro, Ronaldo, you know, when he was doing SmackDown, I mean, he was incredible. You know, it kind of reminded you of old school JR. You know,
I gotta be fair. Like I've not given him a chance. I don't remember the two guys that was doing NXT. I can't remember who it was. What it was.
Moro's doing it right now.
It's good. Like it's. But that's the problem. Like that's not the top brand, and it's better than everything they're doing everywhere else. The stories are better. The athletes seem to be better. The announcers seem to be better. It seems to be better than everything they're doing everywhere else. You know.
Well, I think part of it too is, you know, now that, you know, Vince, you know, and the WWE's nationally traded, you know, they have stockholders to answer to, sponsors, you know, corporate things, you know, and they just kind of try to keep things as homogenized as possible.
I think they just need to learn to offend people. They need JoJo there for about a week.
Yeah, let him run the creative for a few minutes.
Hey, I can do that.
Yeah, bring him in. I'll watch that. You know?
I mean, you watch it quick because it's not going to last long.
It's going to last long.
I'm definitely not PC.
The amount of lawsuits just from what he sent to people on the roster in their Facebook. Meet one. I need everybody's Facebook Messenger account. I'm going to be sending you some work-related stuff.
Hey, I've toned it down a lot since, you know, yesterday.
Since this morning. No, my last one wasn't bad, I don't believe.
No,
I'm trying to remember
really
what my last
good.
one was. No, I don't believe my last message was all that bad. Like, I mean, I couldn't
don't
show
think
it to
I've seen
normal people, but like people like me wouldn't be offended by it.
It was the whipped cream. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah. Yeah, that one, I don't even consider bad. Like that's not like it was. I've not had a real.
That
bad
was
one
entertaining. But
Yeah, I've
you know.
not had a real bad one in a while. As soon as Josh gets his, he gets his degree, that's his graduation present. Just unload on it.
Yeah,
Here's what I've been thinking about all day. Video after video after video.
That'd be the quickest anybody's ever been a therapist and quit. You know,
Screw this. It's not worth the money.
Oh goodness.
Fun times.
Fun times. Good
Awkward
times.
silence,
Good
too.
times.
It's-
Yeah.
I was just reflecting on some of the videos.
Some of them have damaged me emotionally, but that's okay. Well, I think that's a pretty good first episode.
I think
We're
so.
at an
I
hour
agree.
and
That
20
was
minutes.
really a lot of fun, actually.
Not bad at all. Not bad.
So we'll put this up. It'll be on, well, if you're hearing it, you'll be hearing it off of iTunes because that's the only place I know how to put it right now. And then I'll also probably embed it. There's a website and all that good stuff that I probably should have looked up beforehand that this will show up on.
Yeah.
It's on Spreaker, but I'd have to figure out how to tell you how to get there. So look for it on iTunes if you've heard. Or if you're listening to it on iTunes, it'll probably be on YouTube too. I'll probably go ahead and put it on YouTube. Just convert the audio, maybe put a picture of JoJo, something like that.
Yeah.
Something to draw in the ladies.
Yep.
One more time with the sponsors, Deathless Forge, homemade, local-made forge and stuff, blacksmith and stuff. I can usually explain that a lot better, but I've done so many test shows that have not panned out for the other podcasts that I just give up hope, and like my train of thought is gone. Hopefully this one has recorded and worked right. But Deathless Forge, they do ship. They have an Etsy shop. Look them up on Facebook or on Etsy. Chain Reaction BJJ. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Hazard. Check them out at chainreactionbjj.com. And then we'd like to thank Hot Rods Pizza for letting us come in and take over and make a mess in their back room. They're in Hyman, Kentucky, so it's Hot Rods Pizza, and their number is 785-0055. And hopefully by the time this one's up and going, another week or so, we can get in and do another one and keep this going. So like, subscribe, tell everybody about it, subscribe on YouTube. Share. If you didn't like it, find somebody you don't like and tell them about it, and then they can be, you can waste their day and waste their time. So,
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you guys for coming out and doing
No
this
problem.
with me.
Hey, absolutely.
See you guys next time.